What to do, ladies and dudes? Jabberjaw's back in the booth, Vulgar Desperado on the mic for a review of Like a Dragon Yakuza, the new Amazon Prime show. Now, if you've been seeing any of our videos in the past, you know I like the Yakuza games, you know I like to use some of their video game gameplay footage here on the channel, and I will be doing that again for this video because I don't feel like getting clips from the show. It's a little lazy tonight, but anywho. So the show in and of itself definitely takes a lot of different creative liberties from the original plot. And I'm just going to read the original plot here, ripped straight from Wikipedia. The game follows the story of Kazuma Kiryu, a Yakuza whose life changes when his boss, Dojima, attempts to rape Kiryu's childhood friend, Yumi. When Dojima is murdered by Kiryu's best friend and fellow Yakuza, Nishikihama, Kiryu accepts blame for the murder and is imprisoned for 10 years. During his incarceration, Kiryu is expelled from the organization, the Tojo clan, and Yumi goes missing. After his release, he learns that the 10 billion yen has been stolen from Tojo's clan's private bank, and the entire Japanese underworld is now searching for the lost wealth. Now, because I don't want to make this too long a review, I'm mostly going to focus on the things that are different from the original plot and just kind of go over a few things that I liked and also mainly disliked. But generally speaking, I mean, the show in and of itself is not bad. Again, being that this is like a 20-year difference from the original and a 10-year difference from the remake of the original game. Creative liberties are bound to happen, and you know, that's fine. There's a whole swooth of fans that probably never even played the original, or maybe only played the Infinite Wealth or the new Yakuza with Ichiban, and maybe this is their first introduction to Kiryu, so you know, no shame in that game. But that being said, there are some things that I noticed that were different from the original that, you know, if you are a longtime fan, you're gonna be like, it might leave a little sour taste in your mouth. That's not to say that it's bad, but it does feel weird, to say the least. And one of the main things I noticed was how Nishiyama and Kiryu like kind of get introduced into the gang. They're more or less like raised by a former Yakuza. Well, he wasn't former at the time, but you know, they more or less were raised by a Yakuza, and in the game, like they kind of just know what's up more, and they're kind of about it. They're kind of like, they look up to these characters, you know. It's very emblematic of probably Japan at that time, you know, depending on if you grew up in the hood like that and you're like, hey, these are the men, these guys, you know, they got their badges, they got the swag, they got their money, they got the suits, they got their tats, they got the respect, they got the power. And a lot of people probably wanted to join, you know, maybe not a lot, but you know, some people wanted to join. And again, being raised by one, that was kind of their goal. So in this one around, the show starts off with them, Nishiyama, Kiryu, Yumi, their the childhood friend and Kiryu's love interest, and a new created character for the show, Miho, are robbing this Tojo arcade where they're just kind of getting their secret stash of money, and they're trying to use that to run away to essentially get their freedom, as they call it. They're essentially all orphans living under, or rather in Sunflower under Kazuma, the former Yakuza patriarch of this little orphanage here. And they're kind of bad-mouthing Kazuma too. They're like, oh, we don't like him, he's kind of this, he's kind of that. And again, this is where it kind of like leaves a weird taste in your mouth, because you know, if you played the game, you understand that Kazuma is essentially like Kiryu's Ben Parker. Like, he looks up to and reveres this man, and even when they, you know, find out more darker and deeper, you know, history, you know, within the game, you know, like, you know, you kind of like, if you played, you'll know, like, I think he's responsible for Kiryu's parents' death and yada yada yada. Kiryu still holds this man in a high regard, but that relationship is not necessarily tarnished, but it seems to be non-existent. Like, it doesn't seem like they're going to even, you know, remotely show that or remotely even hint at that. At least so far in the first 3 episodes, it just seems very, very diminished or non-important, if you will. Another thing was, how they got into the Yakuza. They get busted, you know, and then the Yakuza comes in like, hey, where's the money? And Kiryu, whether it's a quick idea, thinking on his feet, or he actually did plan it, he's like, hey, I want to get your guys' attention. I want to be the Dragon of Dojima. Nishiyama kind of follows suit and kind of begs his way into the clan as well. Kiryu has to prove himself in this little fight tournament, and Nishiyama kind of cries his way onto the team. But that being said, like, they kind of like grew up around it, so it was just kind of more yeah, I don't want to say it was like handed to them into the game, but it was just kind of like, in a weird way, like birthright, if you will. Like it was more expected, whereas like here they kind of it seems like they didn't want that life. I mean, they were literally trying to run away, and then when they were about to die, they get sent off to work on some fishing boat, and the girls and generally into prostitution. Then they kind of have this bright idea, if you will. So it kind of seems more like, okay, hey, I don't want to do this, but we'll do this to survive. And again, that might be a way to sell it to a modern audience, make it more palatable. I mean, it's not that hard of a sale if you are from a different era, different generation, but maybe to more modern audiences, like having your good guy be generally joined up with the bad guys doing bad things, willingly, it's not so much of a sell. Now, again, there is a debate to say that maybe he did concoct that plan to get their attention so he could join up with them, but it doesn't really necessarily feel that way. So I didn't really like the way that they kind of get introduced to that. I kind of preferred the original manner in how he's like, okay, hey, my father is in the clan, I'm gonna be in the clan Dojo clan, but we're gonna, that kind of made a little bit more sense to me personally. Another thing that I kind of have noticed, like, too, is just like the relationship between Kiryu and Yumi is also seeming to be non-existent as well. Maybe they'll expand on that more. There's more episodes to come, but a big part of the whole why Kiryu goes to jail is his former boss was trying to assault his girl, and while Nishikiyama's the one that kills him, Kiryu's love for her is, pretty apparent. He's trying to propose to her. They have this whole thing, and that doesn't even seem like remotely hinted in this show, like, at all. Like, they've only have like so many lines of dialogue together, and now that he's kind of out of jail, and Yumi, her whole story being completely different too, she seems more annoyed by him than anything. Now, again, there's more flashbacks to be done. There's more past to be figured out, but it doesn't seem like there's even a hint of that romance. One thing that I was glad to see that I thought wasn't going to be there was Haruka. She eventually did show up in the 3rd episode, and somewhat like in the game, but they actually like made her a character. It seems like Yumi was pretending to be her sister when Kiryu got out of jail because of the whole 10 million or 10 billion missing yen and all that jazz. But it seems now that some of that plot is kind of being thrusted on this actual created character now, and not so much like Yumi and Haruka. Haruka, unless again there's a twist, does seem to be Yumi's sister Aiko's daughter and not Yumi's daughter, which this is a weird one for me because it's like, okay, well, in the game, spoiler alert, I guess, Yumi eventually does die, and Kiryu becomes Haruka's like surrogate father, if you will. And while there's still potential for that to happen, with Yumi not having this, kid and not being the one kind of on the run. I mean, she's not really on the run. She's kind of involved with the whole missing money, but she's kind of where the episode left off in the 3rd one. She's, helping Kiryu trying to find it and track it down. It does give an avenue for their love story and maybe even a happier ending if you think about it. But, that story has kind of been diminished to a point where maybe it's not going to happen. But, it does, like, some of the drama and rather the guards, not so much guards, but the roadblocks per se that were kind of preventing maybe like a normal relationship for Kiryu has kind of been derailed because Haruka is somebody else's kid now, and Haruka is not the $10 million girl anymore running around like, hey, we know you have the money, you're the key to the money. They're all looking for Haruka's mother, who's kind of the key to that. And, maybe if I'm remembering wrong or not, someone can kind of remind me in the comments here, but, maybe they thought Yumi was originally like that, so maybe Aiko being like that is kind of more original to the game. Nonetheless, that is something that I did notice that was notably different. The whole relationship between Kiryu, Yumi, Haruka, and now the actual real Aiko. Another thing that was different is this whole Dragon of Dojima thing. If I'm remembering right, memory serves me well, Kiryu kind of earned that nickname just in the Tojo clan just by, being a badass Yakuza. But he kind of, that nickname already existed, and he wanted to become the Dragon of Dojima because he knew of one who he watched as a kid. And in a weird way, that kind of almost made this like a multiverse, alternate universe kind of story with another Kiryu, because there's only one dragon. There's only one Dragon of Dojima, and that is Kiryu Kazuma. So that was kind of a weird kind of take on that. I also feel like Kiryu is not the great fighter that he is, and the only time Kiryu is less of a fighter, and even in that sense, that's a stretch of a word, is Yakuza 0. And the only reason you can kind of say that is that's when he's first coming up and he's learning some of his techniques, but he can still brawl. He's a brawler, but he does learn how to fight. And while you can kind of see the little training montage and that he can still beast people. And when he gets out of prison, in 99 or 95, it seems like he's kind of struggling a little bit, which I was kind of like, well, I don't know how to feel about that. It was kind of a weird take because, you're used to Kiryu just Merc City all the time. But, it does make sense, for the story, colloquially speaking. Let's see, what else? I mean, again, because of the story, you have to, it's made for TV. You have to kind of, you can't be with Kiryu 24/7 like you are in a video game. So you do get a little bit more story with Yumi, Miho, some of the detective Date, some of the other Yakuza bosses, and that's fine, and it does work to tell the story in more different angles than just through Kiryu's eyes. But sometimes it feels like you're not with Kiryu that much, and I would kind of like to speed it up in a little bit to know why he was in prison. And they're using a phrase in Japanese, and for space on it's like Oroshu. I can't remember. I'm not even gonna try. But my guess is that it means boss killer, just because that's why he was in prison in the original game. But it's not really being translated here. I could watch it in English, but I just know you gotta watch it in Japanese. And so I'm assuming they're calling him boss killer or something like that. But nonetheless, I feel like because the original story, you do kind of get it relatively quickly. You get his backstory. You're like, hey, this is Kiryu, killed his boss because the guy was trying to rather took the fall for it. I feel like you can kind of wrap that shit up quickly. But they didn't. They're kind of taking the long haul on this, and that's a little unfortunate because if I'm not mistaken, this is only 8, maybe 10 episodes long, and we're 3 in already. And considering the Yakuza game it's been a while, but it's not like you're going back and forth between 2005 and 1995. You're in 1995, then you're in 2005, and while he's kind of learning things that happened in the last 10 years and all that jazz, it's not like we're all always flashing back. You might have some melancholy moments because hey, this person changed, or time and blah blah blah, but we're not always going back trying to get the mystery of it. But again, this is kind of made for television, so in that regard, it does work for a storytelling device trying to solve this mystery between 2 different timelines. That being said, it does kind of slow things down, and it kind of makes it feel a little choppy at certain times. I do wish that maybe, like I said, we kind of just sped it up, throw him in jail, and kind of just get that whole thing out behind us, and then we can kind of maybe focus on the whole 10 million missing yen thing. And man, I really don't know if they're about to utilize Haruka at all, which is kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. She was there, but she only appeared in episode 3. And then Yumi being alive and potentially not her mother, there's a high chance she could be her mother. It's only episode 3, but that being that she's not her mom, it just doesn't seem like Haruka is gonna even be useful. I mean, she can easily be written off if she's not Yumi's daughter at all. And Yumi, again, with Kiryu's relationship, she seems kind of disinterested in this nigga. So I'm very, very curious at where the story will go. I think that's kind of what's going to be pulling me through it mostly. Like overall, it's not bad. It's pretty well written at certain times. It could be a little bit tighter. It's kind of funny. I mean, like, the dude has got the height for Kiryu, but, there's, like, American producers be like, bro, you gotta hit this gym. You gotta start bulking the fuck up, because Kiryu's swole. And he's ripped out, but he's not, like, super swole like Kiryu is. But nonetheless, I do think it is enjoyable. Longtime fans will probably watch it with the same eye that I have and be like, oh, that's different. Oh, that's different. And whether you like it or not is going to be, an individual case. I don't think it's terrible. It's definitely not like a bastardization that you've seen in some other remakes and rehashes and yada yada reboots, but overall it's not bad. Maybe give it about a 7 or so far. Like, it has a lot of potential. It's kind of cool. The fights have been pretty decent. It could have been a little bit more. There was also Majima. He did also make an appearance, and I think that dude's Majima voice is very good. It was very good and well done. He sounds almost like the character from the game, so now I'm just kind of waiting for him to go a little bit more crazy with it, so we'll see where that goes. But again, there's some potential. Things are different in a made for television, arguably made for modern era kind of way, and I don't hate it, but we'll see how it goes before I can tell you if I love it or like it. But that's my kind of quick first impression of the first 3 episodes that are out. I'll probably do another part when more episodes come out, and we'll see where we go from there. But you know what it is. Please do us a like, do us a solid, and hit that like and subscribe. Jabberjaw's in the booth, Vulgar Desperado on the mic, and we will catch you on the next one. Deuces.